all right, come with me. And he took me away into, you wouldn't get away with this now, he took me into the cloakroom, just me and him. And we sat down and he put a copy of the government inspector in my hands and said, read that. So I read the part of Bob Chinsky.
Right. Okay.
And when we finished reading, he said, okay, be at rehearsals tomorrow night. And that was the first time I met Clive.
Oh, brilliant.
Who was already writing, directing, starring in and hand-drawing his own posters for his own plays at school, with titles like Voodoo and Inferno. And I went to see one of them, which I dimly remember. It involved ballet dancing Nazis, I think. The head teacher would give Clive free rein, basically, to take over the school hall. You're very badly lit over there. I can't see anyone over that side. These people are all beautifully lit. I see these people. I can't see you over there. And he would basically be given permission to not do school for a week and take over the school hall to put on these productions. I think simply because the head teacher, Mr. Pobjoy, recognized a talent. There were other teachers at school as well there was a wonderful, wonderful English teacher that we had called Norman Russell, who I know Clive was a few years ahead of me, but I know the story from Clive that he had set them a piece of composition homework, so Clive had written an original short story. And when he got his homework back, Norman Russell had written at the bottom of it, "See me." Those words that strike fear and trembling into all of us when we're at school. See me, oh God, what have I done? So he went to see Norman, who said, oh yeah, do you know why I wrote that? And Clive said, no, sir. And he said, well, I wrote that because I'm not qualified to mark this.
Wow.
This is extraordinary, and I want to talk to you further about this. And Norman, who had been taught English at Oxford by J.R.R. Tolkien,
right.
Really took Clive under his wing and kind of opened a horizon to him and said, you know, you can do this.
Amazing.
I think probably from talking to members of staff, because I don't think Clive was an easy pupil by any stretch of the imagination. He's not an easy person. You can't be with all of that going on in your head. But he recognised the talent and he wanted to give it free rein. It's the same head teacher who about 10 years earlier had given a pupil at Quarry Bank permission to form a skiffle band.
All right.
The band was named after the school. It was called the Quarrymen, and
oh, yeah.
I believe that pupil went on to have a bit of a career in the music industry.
Just slightly, yeah.
I forget his name now, John something
John,
or other.
Yeah.
Lennon, that was
That's the one, yeah.
Yes. So I always said that Mr. Pobjoy could rest his head easy on his pillow at night. You know, however
Absolutely.
bad things may have got, he could always say, well, I'm partly responsible for launching the careers of John Lennon and Clive Barker. I would take that.
That's a pretty good legacy to leave behind,
Yes.
isn't it?
And then after school and university, we started doing our own crazy stuff. I mean, we used to be given the Everyman Theatre in Liverpool when it was dark to put our own stuff on. Stuff that we'd spend a year creating these things from scratch and then perform them once.
Wow.
I always say that was my drama school.
Yeah, yeah.
And then by degrees, by the end of the 70s, we moved down to London. And that was when the Dog Company was formed.
That was when it was formed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, we thought the world would just lie down at our feet.
Yeah.
We were making life very easy for ourselves because we were an unknown group of actors performing unknown plays by an unknown writer. But we thought all we had to do was turn up and perform these plays, and the world would go, "Oh my God, you're geniuses! Oh, here, keys to the kingdom, mansion on the hill." And turned out nobody gave a good goddamn what we were doing. So for several years, the dog company, not that we were not successful, we were successful, particularly in the early 80s when we went up to the Edinburgh Festival. We were very successful up there. But, you know, we never got the funding we needed. I have a quote from in a letter from a guy at the Arts Council who said he didn't think Clive had anything more to say than George Bernard Shaw. And I still can't work out today whether that's a good thing or not. George Bernard Shaw had a lot to say, but I never quite understood what he meant. They were not exactly writing in the same corner of the room, it seemed to me.
During those days, were you already working with the likes of Simon Bamford, Nicholas Berman-Vince, and Barbie Wilde?
Barbie, no. Barbie didn't come along until Hellbound.
Right.
Simon and Nick, yes, briefly. Nick to a lesser extent, but Simon was briefly in a couple of dog company productions. They were both students at Mount View Theatre School in Crouch End in London, which is where we were all living. So we got to know them, and there was another guy called Dave Cunningham who helped us on the stage management side of things as well. So, yeah.
Okay. So you've played Pinhead 8 times, is that right?
I played Pinhead. Yes.
But
Pinhead.
Let's face it, you've done a lot more than that.
Ringo Starr once said that. Yeah.
Pinhead.
It was his birthday yesterday, so when we were doing publicity for Hellraiser 3 at the MTV Music Awards, where they filmed those inserts where famous people weren't on the list and couldn't get in, and they filmed those as prior to the awards, and then they screened them. And it was Andrew Dice Clay, Roseanne, Ringo Starr, and Pinhead, whose names went on the list and couldn't get in. And the day I filmed my stuff, I turned up, got out of the limo in makeup and costume, and feeling kind of special at UCLA. And Elton John and Eric Clapton were rehearsing in the auditorium. And the PA said, "Well, it's fantastic to have you here, Doug. By the way, do you know Ringo's here today?" And my legs went to jelly, and we turned the corner into the auditorium, and he was standing with his back to me, talking to a couple of guys, and he turned around and he said, "Hey, it's Pinhead!" If any of you are ever worried about being nervous and anxious about approaching me or anyone else, don't worry about it, because I promise you, my brain disconnected from my tongue and I just babbled at Ringo. And with all due respect to Ringo, that was just Ringo. If it had been George, if it had been John, I couldn't have done it. I'd have had to have just said, "Thank you," and run away. So, how did we get on to Ringo Starr? Pinhead. Yes, I played Pinhead.
Pinhead.
Yes. You are correct.
Yes. So 8 times. The first film for Clive was a bit of a nightmare, wasn't it?
Was it?
Just getting the distribution and everything else, and he found that I think he found the film world wasn't as forgiving as the theatre world. Is that correct? He struggled.
That's news to me.
Okay.
I certainly don't remember the first film as being a nightmare.
No. Okay.
Now, are you maybe confusing Nightbreed?
I think I am.
You may
I am
be.
confusing with
Okay.
Nightbreed. Yes.
If we have time, we'll
Sorry,
get on to
Doug.
Nightbreed.
Yes, we'll get on to Nightbreed.
Hellraiser was good. I mean, basically, Clive, he had never directed a movie before, but he was making a name for himself as a writer. He cold pitched the movie. He had a deal on the table with Virgin in this country.
Right. Okay.
Which would have made it the British horror film that it's often claimed to be. Then Virgin changed their minds. I think they felt it didn't fit in with their family entertainment remit.
Yeah.
So Clive and his producer Chris Figg got on a plane, went out to LA, and their first pitch meeting was with New World, who said yes.
Yeah.
And away we went. So my argument in terms of the British thing has always been, 99% of the talent that put the movie on the screen is British, sure, but 100% of the money that put the movie on the screen is American, and therefore 100% of the profits were American.
Yeah.
To me, that Piper calls the tune. Makes it an American movie, but no, I don't think it was a nightmare.
No.
Indeed, they gave us a whole chunk more money while we were filming, and had pretty much committed to a sequel before we finished filming, let alone before they'd seen the final edited product. As the dailies were going back from London to LA, they were starting to get very excited about what they were seeing and wanted more.
I was getting my wires crossed with night.
Yeah, that's okay.
So let's talk a little bit about Dominator.
Shit. Okay.
And the animation. And you're a producer on that, is that right? As well as voiceover?
I have a producer credit, yes. My friend of mine, Tony Luke, had approached me. Launch party for the Science Fiction Channel in London. Would I do some voiceover work and possibly some acting work for a project he was trying to put together? And I said, well, I can't really say that now, but get in contact with me, which he did. And we worked together on a project called Archangel Thunderbird, which was really pretty good, and it was in the hiatus period when the BBC weren't interested in Doctor Who, and it was covering some similar-ish territory. We had a series of meetings after we did a pilot which screened, which did very well, and we had a series of meetings with the Sci-Fi Channel, which went round in circles and didn't go anywhere, and then the Sci-Fi Channel got bought out, and that project died in the way so many projects do. And Tony had started working on a full-length animated movie, and he wanted me to voice one of the characters, and I just kind of got involved in working on it with him. And we got it completed. We had Dani Filth, Cradle of Filth, did the voice of Dominator. Ingrid Pitt was in it. Mark and Lard were in it, as they were then called. And we completed the movie, and it was fairly successful. We started work on a sequel. And again, we had lots of meetings with money men, which went round in circles as meetings with money men do, and eventually it came to naught. During this period, also, Tony had developed mesothelioma and had a lung removed and his diaphragm removed, and we carried on working together on a number of projects. Tony had a rough time physically. He was part of the inception of Renegade, who were responsible for, for putting the Spine Chillers audiobook series, which a couple of people have mentioned to me this morning. That grew out of that. Tony's cancer returned, unfortunately, last year, and he passed away at the beginning of this year.
Sorry to hear that.
So, but Dominator was a really good working experience for me.
Excellent. You mentioned Cradle of Filth. You've done some narration on some of that stuff. How did that work out? How did that come about?
It came about like this. My phone rang, and Faye Walvern, the band's manager, was on the other end, said, Dani wonders if you'd do some spoken word for the new movie, new album, which was Midian.
Right.
And I think that previous album was Cruelty and the Beast, which Ingrid had worked on.
Yeah.
And she said, we don't have very much money. And I said, how much money is not very much money? And she told me. And she said, it'll be, a couple of hours work if you could. So I said yes. That's it. I already vaguely knew Dani. I can't remember whether this was, I think it was before Dominator happened. But I had met him a couple of times. Now, I'm a major disappointment to my fans because I'm not a fan of heavy metal or death metal or thrash metal, all the other metals. I'm not a fan of your kind of thing. I think Dani's I knew enough of Dani to know I thought, and I still think, he's an immense talent. He's a very small guy, but he's an immense talent. He's a really good writer, and how the hell he gets that voice, those two voices, because he has that deep bass voice and he has that wild falsetto voice as well. How it comes out of that tiny little frame, I've no idea, but he does it, and he does it without damaging his voice. I saw them right at the end of an American tour in Baltimore. I was at a convention in Baltimore, and Dani and a couple of the members of the band came over to the convention, which was great because everybody kept walking past this guy with the pink contact lenses and the purple dreadlocks, and they'd walk past him, and then there'd be this. I think Dani Filth just. And it was right at the end of the tour, but his voice was in pristine condition. I mean, I could replicate what he does once, then I'd have no voice left. And I certainly developed a respect for them as technicians in their music, because I had to do some of the narration I had to do to the music, and I'm a 3/4 guy, you know what I mean? I'm looking for the on-beat and the off-beat. And here I've got to find the off-beat that sits in between the two on-beats that are slightly off the beat that should be, in their 29, 23 time signatures or whatever they work in. So I did say to Dani, please, if we do this again, 4/4, please. And 2, 3, 4. So that was Midian, and then scroll forward and the phone rang and it was Faye, and she said Dani was wondering if, and I said okay. And then scroll forward a bit and the phone rang and it was Faye, and she said Dani was wondering if, and I said okay. And scroll forward a bit and the phone rang and Faye said, and I said, and so after Midian I did Phonography and Amphetamine and Godspeed on the Devil's Thunder.
Lovely. So a good working relationship with those guys.
Yes, I said they should change their name to Doug Bradley and Cradle of Filth, because they were really nothing more than my backing band by that time.
So staying with the voice work, you also worked on Star Wars: The Old Republic, Shadow of Revan video game.
Yes.
Was that fun?
Was it fun? I don't know really. It was weird. We all know Lucasfilm's reputation for anal retentiveness, I think. It's all true. I was not allowed to see the script in advance at all. None of it. So I turn up on the day, and all I get is my lines. I have no idea what's going on.
I've got no feel for the context.
I'm talking to all these people with, silly Star Wars names. Bithnal Funduwap, and I don't know who the hell that is, or whether I like him or not, or is he a good guy or a bad guy or whatever. So, and we set about it was also pretty much evident that they just wanted Pinhead's voice, which was a bit boring of them, I thought. But so I did it, and then I think I've done 2 more sessions since I've been in Pittsburgh. Done those in Pittsburgh with them. I did actually get to see the script in advance for the last lot of recordings, but only my lines.
Right. Doesn't help a lot, does it?
My science fiction name is Salgawad Yeldar. It's your own name backwards. So my first name backwards is Salgawad,
Right.
and my surname is Yeldar. That's my science fiction name. Salgawad Yeldar.
Okay.
How do we get to this?
We were talking about voice work.
Yes.
So going back to the proper acting. Yeah?
Proper acting.
Proper acting.
Okay. I
There's
don't know that I've ever done any of that, but
Really?
I'd be happy to talk about
Well,
it.
you've been in The Bill, Inspector Morse,
Oh, God,
Honky Sausages,
yes.
Judge John Deed,
Yes.
Paradise Heights. Is it nice to get away from the mask?
Heights.
And
Yes. It is. Yeah. I mean, it's not that I, want to disown the mask. Don't run away with that idea. But yeah, there's a certain pleasure in spending 10 minutes in the makeup chair with a couple of dabs of powder, and yeah, you're good.
yeah.
2, 3, 4 hours of it with glue and paint. Yeah.
What's next for Doug Bradley? You got much going on at the
I have
moment?
no idea.
Film-wise?
Well, I just did voiceover for an animated movie. I think these days they call it an all-ages film,
Right.
not a children's film.
Okay.
It's based on Lovecraft's work, and I think it was a graphic novel originally. So it's Lovecraft as a boy, and it's the full Lovecraft Cthulhu mythos, as we know.
Yeah.
But it's in relation to his father as well. So I'm playing Nyarlathotep.
Okay.
And I've actually I did 2 movies in an hour.
Wow. Good stuff.
So the first movie is called Howard Phillips Lovecraft and the Frozen Kingdom. The sequel will be Howard Phillips Lovecraft and the Underwater Kingdom. And it will be a trilogy, I believe. So theoretically, later this year I'll be doing the 3rd film. Ron Perlman and Christopher Plummer are also in the cast of that. So fingers crossed for that. I've been approached, and we're negotiating at the moment. A guy who's been doing short classic horror adaptations, which he's releasing through Fangoria. And he just did Dracula with Tony Todd, playing Dracula, and he's just approached me about reading Sherlock Holmes in The Hound of the Baskervilles. I get The Hound of the Baskervilles, of course, which is the story in which Holmes disappears. He's in it at the beginning and he's in it at the end, and he theoretically stays in London, but he doesn't actually. So we're talking about that at the moment. I think it'll probably happen. I've signed on to a science fiction movie called The Dead Quiet. I think they want to change the title to AG1, which I think is an extraordinarily boring title.
Yeah.
Whereas I think The Dead Quiet is a pretty cool
Sounds
title.
pretty good, yeah.
Science
I think
fiction
the IMDb
movie that,
credit at the minute is AG1.
I believe Dani Trejo and Luke Goss.
Oh wow.
I'll just let that name linger for a moment. Are also signed up to. That's always been, ever since Bros first appeared, it's been a burning ambition of mine.
He's not too shabby an actor.
No, I haven't said a word about him as an actor, or as a drummer. Fingers crossed. I'm going to be doing some more voice recording. I've been approached. There's a collection coming out of kind of short bits and pieces of somewhat erotic content from Clive called Tonight Again. And I've been asked to record the audio book for that. And I'm going to be doing some more of the Spine Chillers recording as well.
So plenty going on.
Yes.
And you're still in touch with Clive. How is he?
He's okay. Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. Good stuff. Is there anything you wouldn't do as an actor? Anything you've ever turned down?
Anything that I've turned down, you mean in terms of saying no to a script?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Apart from the obvious one.
The obvious one?
The recent Hellraiser.
Being Revelation?
Yeah.
Yeah, I turned that down. You want me to talk about Revelation and Judgment? Do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think we'll talk about it.
Revelation, we're middle of July 2010, I get a phone call from Gary Tunnicliffe, who was my makeup artist on the last 5 Hellraiser movies that I did. They're making another Hellraiser movie. The movie was being made for entirely political reasons. Dimension Films had spotted apparently that if they didn't have a movie in front of the cameras by September the 3rd, they would lose the rights to the franchise. We're in the middle of July. They have no script, no cast, no crew, no nothing. It comes accompanied by a quote from Bob Weinstein. We don't give a shit what you do, just get this movie in front of the cameras, which just gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling about the whole project, really. And my basic feeling was that Dimension Films were really nothing but bad for the franchise. Since the day they got involved, the franchise kept its head above water in spite of them, not because of them, in my opinion. I didn't see why I should be pulling favors. They were spending a pittance on the movie. They wanted me in LA for a couple of days for next to nothing. I didn't see why I should be tripping over myself to save their skins. I did ask to see the screenplay, and I read the screenplay, and that was finally the reason why I said no. Who's seen the movie? And of those who've seen the movie, who thinks I made the wrong decision? I finally watched it when the Judgment fiasco kicked up in the last couple of months. I was aware that it was sitting there on Netflix, and I hadn't been specifically avoiding it, I just hadn't got around to it. I did finally watch it. Now, I'd read the screenplay, so I expected it to be bad. Never in my wildest imaginings did I conceive that it could possibly have been as bad as it was. I mean, just beyond, wow. Steph, my girlfriend, said Pinhead scenes looked like he wasn't in hell so much as in the garage next door to the house. And my feeling was that it was like the Lifetime channel had made a Hellraiser movie. Only not as much fun as that might sound. And then at the end of last year, between Christmas and New Year, I got a phone call again from Gary Tunnicliffe. In all of this process, I never spoke to anyone from Dimension Films once. And it's exactly the same story all over again, with more money apparently being spent on the budget, though it seems that has gone south a long way since that phone call. Same deal, same business. I said, okay, send me the screenplay. And then in the middle of January, and they're filming at the beginning of February, so we're very close. There's no time for me to have any input on anything. Gary said, I'm ready to send you the screenplay. I need to send you an NDA. This is a non-disclosure agreement. I understand those. I've signed them before. I've signed them since. I was a bit, I don't think I'm being, I hope I'm not being egotistical if I couldn't help thinking, you know what, I've been a fairly central part of this franchise for 30 years. Yeah. Now I need to sign a non-disclosure agreement to read what now? Hellraiser 10? Is the security of the world really at risk? If people have a vague idea of what might be going on in Hellraiser 10? This is in spite of the fact that Gary has already told me the entire plot on the film, on the phone. It's about a serial killer. Oh! I didn't say that. But I signed a non-disclosure to read the script for The Dead Quiet. It was 2/3 of a page long, and it didn't mention me at all, really. It asserted the producer's intellectual copyright in the project, in the script, the characters, etc. Fine. I signed it without thinking twice about it. This thing I got from Gary, again, not from Dimension Films. My first response was, this is a joke.
Yeah.
This is Gary winding me up. This thing was 3.5 pages long, written in stupid legalese, telling me, amongst other things, where I was not allowed to talk about the screenplay, specifically forbidding me to discuss the screenplay in restrooms. Now, I have my quirks, I have my oddities, but discussing screenplays with the guy in the next stall to me is not one of them. In restaurants, in elevators, or which may be overheard.
Right.
See Gary's cellular telephone conversation to me, in which he also told me what Sean Patrick Flannery earned on his previous movie. So I thought it was a bit rich that he's now asking me to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Also making me liable for $1 million if I damaged the producer's investment in the project. I said, I'm not signing this. And Gary said, I got a message back from Gary, sorry you feel like that. That was it. Now, again, I kind of think if I was in their position, I might have been on the phone, to say, what's the problem? Could we work around this? What can we do? No, nothing. According to Gary, in an interview he gave to Fangoria magazine, they started recasting me the next day.
Really?
So it was that fast. So the movie is done. It's called Judgment. Gary tells me it's an original screenplay. I know it isn't, because he was crowdfunding the same title a few years before that. And he got his new Pinhead, who again he said in interviews he's very happy with. So Pinhead now apparently is badass.
Right. Okay. Because he wasn't already.
He wasn't before. No.
Okay.
Lily-livered little wimp in the way that I played him, apparently. But, Gary also promises us that he has the screen presence of Peter Cushing. Now, Peter Cushing is my god. He is my hero above and beyond all others, as a horror actor and pretty much as an actor too. A wonderful, 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 wonderful actor who could switch from the darkness of his Baron Frankenstein and flip it round to playing the pure white intensity of his Van Helsing. Just like that, So if it's true, and if the new Pinhead has the screen presence of Peter Cushing, then I will be the first to bow before him and doff my cap.
Yeah.
Presumably the movie will be out sometime this year, and we can make our minds up on that score.
Yeah.
So that's Judgment. I didn't even get as far as reading the screenplay this time. I don't want to sound bitter about the whole thing. To be honest, I couldn't give a shit. I haven't turned my back on playing Pinhead again. If someone wants to make an adaptation of the Scarlet Gospels with a budget to match, I'd be delighted. That would be a wonderful thing to do. And if I have no reason to suppose it's going to happen, so please don't get excited. My wish list would be for Guillermo del Toro to direct it, but I have no reason to suppose that's going to happen either.
Let's put it out there.
It would be a great bookend for me, I think, if I'm going to play it again, to close it out that way. And neither Judgment nor Revelation has anything to do with the remake, which is a whole other saga. 10 years they've been talking about remaking the first movie, and I still have no reason to suppose it's imminent.
No. It sounds like you dodged a bullet on that whole experience, to be honest with you. We're pushed for time, so we're going to open up to questions.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anyone out there with a microphone, so I'm just going to go out there and do the do.
Okay.
So, oh, there we go. Yeah, we have a man there.
Hello, Doug.
I hear you. Oh, there you are. Hi.
What's it like being in a very successful horror series where the villain isn't the villain, the actual villain is humanity, and that's the way I perceive it.
I think you're absolutely right. Well, I actually did that twice in a way, because Nightbreed is exactly the same. The monsters are the humans, and the monsters just want to be, left alone to be freaks in their corner of the cemetery. What's it like? Well, it's pretty damn cool, I have to say. I mean, I was a fan of horror movies as a teenager. Before I really knew I was going to be an actor, and when I did become an actor, it wasn't really with any specific ambition to work in the genre. The fact that these things came together for me was wonderful. And I did, I guess, in my own mind, approach Hellraiser, which was my first movie, thinking, I'm going to play the monster in a horror film. That's pretty cool. But reading the screenplay, and certainly once filming got underway, you're absolutely right. Pinhead is not actually the monster in the film. That's Frank and Julia. And Pinhead is almost an impartial umpire, I guess would be the right way to look upon him. But he's a very cool monster anyway. He's very, he's part of what attracted me to him as a character is that there are complications about Pinhead that there aren't with a lot of the other horror characters around at the time. He's not a boogeyman waiting to round the corner, waiting to jump on you with a machete or a chainsaw or a bladed glove or whatever. He's at many steps removed from you. First, you have to discover the existence of the puzzle box. Then you have to find one. Then you have to open it with the right motivation. When Tiffany opens the box in Hellbound, Pinhead says it's not hands that call us, it is desire, so leave her alone. It's the right motivation. And even then he wants to stop and have a chat. Put the kettle on, have a cup of tea and a couple of digestive biscuits, and tell me about yourself. Really tell me about yourself. Tell me about those dark corners of yourself that you don't want to admit to, because those are the most interesting bits. That's then he'll tear your soul apart. But I didn't approach Hellraiser thinking anything other than this is exciting. It's exciting because I'm going to work with Clive on a proper grown-up movie. It's exciting because I'm going to make, boy, if I knew then what I know now, but I'm going to make far more money than I ever dreamed of making. I'd been working in repertory theatre for 100 quid a week prior to Hellraiser, so this was a great deal more money than I had made before. So I had all those excitements in my head, but beyond that, you're just turning up for work. You don't think anything beyond that. I certainly wasn't. If you had told me on a damp Tuesday morning at 6 o'clock when I was sitting in the makeup chair at Cricklewood Production Village with people gluing latex on my head and poking paintbrushes in corners of my ears and things, that 30 years later, is everybody all right over there? 30 years later, I would be sitting here discussing this movie still. I would have been absolutely dumbfounded. So, certainly at the time, and it wasn't really until Hellbound was made and released, and I I went over to Los Angeles in April '89 to do Fangoria's Weekend of Horrors, which was my first convention. That was the first time I was confronted by fandom and its response to Pinhead. That was the first time I was aware of what was going on out there.
Okay. Any more questions for Doug? Young lady there.
Hey Doug, lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How you doing?
You've lovely, thank you. I'm
Good.
better for seeing you. You've already mentioned a little bit about the costume for Pinhead. Obviously, Pinhead is an absolutely amazing character, and even when you watch the movies and you see him, it's just, it looks so real. And like you said, it took you a few hours. Was it uncomfortable, and did you have to keep getting touch-ups all the time, or?
Touch-ups, yes.
Quite
yes.
a lot. Did it take hours to do? And
yeah, the costume in the first movie was complicated, brilliantly made. I wore it in Hellraiser and Hellbound only, made by Jane Wildgoose, who had worked on Dog Company Productions. And Clive invited her specifically to make the Cenobite costumes. Another little stroke of genius that Clive pulled. He saw the importance of that. So she had her own separate department and her own separate budget, purely for the Cenobite costumes. It wasn't part of wardrobe, and it wasn't part of special effects makeup. And she made the costume, the jacket was made out of proper aviator's leather. And all the little bits of musculature you see like on the arms are separate pieces stitched together. But it was a 3-ring circus to get it on and off, and it was not comfortable to wear. I wore a leotard that had the stomach section and the chest sections glued to it, but made out of latex. Then the jacket went on, and the fish hooks went on here, so now the latex on the leotard is physically attached to the costume. And the tool belt went through the belly button, which is attached to the leotard, and the side of it is attached to the jacket. And it was tight, and mobility was restricted. I couldn't sit down like I am now. You have to kind of come out from behind the table. So you have to kind of do that. I've done costume dramas in Empire shirts, starched Edwardian shirts. You can't bend. So when you sit down as a gentleman in your Edwardian thing, you have to go down like that. You don't have a choice. And you have to sit like this. So you don't have a choice. And this collar is up to here. And when you stand up, you have to stand up as though someone pulled a string on your head, because you can't just, do that. So when you stand up, you have to stand up like that, which looks very elegant. And I took a lot of the physicality of Pinhead from the fact that the costume was being a nightmare, because I had a collar up to here. This was very stiff. It tied up the back like a corset and was tied tight, and I had very limited movement in my arms. Plus I'm wearing a skirt, so when I walk I have to be careful not to trip over the thing. So I developed a walk that involved kicking the skirt out of the way first, which made me walk very slowly like that. Now I couldn't. So if ask me a question, any question you like.
Are you having fun at HorrorCon today?
I'm having a great time, thank you. Yes. Now, ask me the same question, and I'll turn to you and answer you as I learned to do as Pinhead, because I can't turn quickly, okay? And why do you need to know?
I'm afraid that's all we've got time for now, Doug.
Well, I also, you see, I had to do that because I couldn't I had to turn all of me because I couldn't turn my head independently. So, it's all a cheat.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, guys.